Okay, first of all, welcome to all of you to today's session with NTT Data and Workiva around the topic last mile reporting with Workiva. NTT Data and Workiva has been on an exciting journey for the last 6 months, I think. Back in April, May, we approached Workiva and had a session with Anita, who's on the call today as well. And we had our first discussions on how could we cooperate between the two entities and see if we can find some good ways to work together. And now 6 months later, we actually have 2 projects signed already and are getting ready to implement those solutions. So from my perspective, it's definitely been a success joining the work with Workiva. Besides that, you could say our initial approach from NTT Data was just to look at the financial reporting and covering some of the topics that we will discuss today. But down the road, we've seen that ESG reporting is definitely also a very important topic, and I guess that Anita will probably address that today as well, just briefly. And it's actually part of the first project that we're running together now. With Workiva, and so we've added that to the services as well, and my guess is that we will see additional Workiva services added frequently when we get down that road as well. So from my perspective, this shows that it's a perfect match between NTT Data and Workiva, and today we'll share some of the insights on why we've decided to work together and some of the benefits we see that you as a customer can get from working with us and Workiva in the Nordic region. So let's have a brief look at today's agenda. First of all, just a brief introduction to both NTT and Workiva and why we've joined up together. And then we will join in or look at the today's topic, the last mile reporting. I will give a short take on that one, and then Anita will take over and tell us a bit about how can we streamline the reporting using Workiva, and a bit about how we get started, and a Q&A session in the end. As you might have noticed, there's a Q&A tab on the right side of the screen. Please add in questions if you have any, and then we will address those at the end of the session. So let's get started. Now, first of all, just a brief introduction to me, for those of you who don't know me. I'm Lars. I'm a director for the planning and consolidation areas at NTT DATA Business Solutions. I've been in this space for more than 25 years, focusing on performance management. So from an NTT Data perspective, what is it that we focus on? You could say that our aim or our claim to fame is that we deliver technology and we deliver solutions. So we focus on the digital transformation and making things work. And today's topic is, from my perspective, actually one of the low-hanging fruits within this area. So before we go into the specific topic today, we have our second speaker today, Anita. Anita, please introduce yourself and we'll keep it to the audience.
Thank you very much, Lars. Pleasure to be here today, and thank you everyone for joining. My name is Anita Velanova. I manage the Nordics partnership side of things for Workiva. I've been with Workiva for the last year and a half, and it's been a very exciting journey. As Lars has mentioned, there's a lot of topics and discussions happening as we speak around how do you streamline your processes, how do you optimize it. And a lot of companies are actually looking at some of the mandates like ESEF, for example, as a way to restructure the way that they're approaching corporate reporting in general and see it as an opportunity. So I'm very excited to kind of give you a bit of an introduction to Workiva for those who haven't, seen us before. Definitely chat with Lars a bit about how do we work together in trying to transform this space specifically. My background is very much in the tech business. So I've been working with channel strategies and channel initiatives for the last 12, 13 years, building out various SaaS companies in the Nordic region. So yeah, very excited to have the opportunity to work with NTT Data again, actually. We've worked before as well in other capacities. So very excited to see what this partnership brings to the region. And Lars, if you go to the next piece, actually, before we maybe kick off, I want to give you a quick intro as well into Workiva, just to kind of set the scene of where we're coming from. So Workiva, we're actually a US-based company. We were started back in 2008, and the reason why we were started is off the back of the financial crisis, actually. Our founders saw a gap in the market almost, where there was a lot of lack of transparency and trust when it came to market figures, market financials being reported, and they wanted to bring that back into the market. So Workiva was born, and through that we've grown based on one use case, actually, which is SEC reporting. And to this day, that's the specific use case. Around 75% of the Fortune 500 still uses for that specific purpose. But as we've grown as a platform, we've seen our customers and our partners adopt different ways of how they work with our platform. So at the moment, I think we know that we know of, there's about 250 different use cases where we play. I'll talk about when I talk a bit later about more in-depth streamlining and reporting. I'll show you some of the key use cases we focus on, but we are a growing organization. So we announced our earnings last week or the week before. We currently have over 4,000 customers, some of them in the Nordics as well, and we are growing. And we are the number one XBRL provider in this space due to our expertise around the SEC piece, which poses us very well into the ESEF space, for example. And as Lars mentioned, ESG reporting coming up, it is one of those ways that we see XBRL being added into that non-financial reporting space as well. So just that's a quick, overview of Workiva, and happy to take any questions, at the end if you want to know more as well.
Thank you, Anita. Well, let's have a brief look at why did we, NTT Data Business Solutions, decide to work with Workiva. Well, you could say from a historical perspective, what we have focused on in our business is delivering best-in-class consolidation solution based on SAP software. Those of you who has worked with us before know that we've been strong in the BBC area, and now we're focusing intensely on the group reporting area. But you could say that the business we've focused on is the financial and non-financial numbers, and not done anything else. So one of the things that we've seen missing is kind of the combination of the numbers and the narratives, getting to the end of the final delivery of the financial report, the statutory reports, etc., whatever you end up with. So what we've done so far is that we deliver the consolidation solution, and actually just decided not to deliver the last part of it, and then you as customers end up with a cut and paste Excel sheets floating around, Word documents in different versions you can control, etc. And some of the things that we've seen that, and from our project perspective, we decided to have the consolidation as part of the scope, but the numbers and narratives out of scope. And that was definitely something that we wanted to change. So due to that, we decided to go in and have a look at the market to see are there any tools to support that last mile reporting. And we actually had a thorough look at the market and decided to partner up with Workiva, because we see them as the strongest tool in the market. So that's a perfect match for us in the storyline to support that. So what we now see is that we're now able to support the entire journey within this area. So for us, it's a perfect match going forward. I don't know about you, and I know we've discussed this quite a lot, but are any comments you want to have on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. For us at Workiva, so we are a cloud platform. We focus on the reporting and compliance piece, and we are, end of the day, a tech provider, right? We spend about 36% of our revenues go back into our product development piece. So we do a lot of focusing on how do we enhance our products, and a lot of the stuff that we bring to market comes from suggestions that our customers and partners would have in terms of what might be an even better way of working. So when we come to the market, we actually a lot of the time work with partners, and NTT Data is perfect for this because you not only have that domain and industry expertise within the market, you know your customers, you're working on different transformation projects potentially with them as well. You're bringing that sort of agility in terms of change management as well. But also you can then implement these projects into their own environments because you are well primed into that knowledge of how that architecture works. So for us as Workiva, we are very much in a partner first mentality in general. We work a lot with our partners, and Lars already mentioned we already have a few projects running together, purely because we believe that we do provide a very good technology to help that last mile reporting piece, but where we really see our customers sometimes needing a lot more help and assistance is around that pre-definition piece, if you may call that, but also around that integrations piece. How do you optimize your data flows? How do you build a data management strategy? How do you integrate into your existing infrastructure to bring the best to help streamline that last mile piece? And at the end of the day, we are trying to grow our mutual customers jointly and support them in their own transformation journeys as well. And that's why we've partnered with NTT Data, and I believe that together we can really help our mutual customers and our mutual prospects to really go into the next stage of not just their financial piece, but also around the compliance piece and the non-financials as well.
Good. Let's have a look at today's topic, last mile reporting, from that perspective, just looking at the topic itself. Now, last mile reporting is, if we look at the definition, some of the processes that takes place after the monthly, quarterly, or annual consolidation process. So it's not a consolidation process we're talking about. It's the process after the consolidation to present the financial reporting and the financial disclosures. So to make it a bit more clear, some of you might have heard of the terminology, the last mile of finance, and it covers both the consolidation area and the reporting area. But that's not where we are focusing today, because we're focusing on the last mile reporting, where we're covering the narratives and the numbers, and not the consolidation area. So just in short, Workiva is not a consolidation tool. It's maybe I'm simplifying it a bit, but it's the product that enables the business to combine the numbers and the narratives in a structured way. Of course, there's a lot more than that, but it's not a consolidation tool. It's everything after that area, I could say. So I don't know about you, Anita, but from my perspective, the last mile reporting is one of the weakest links, or maybe the weakest link in finance from my perspective. When I have discussions with some of our clients, we tend to see that this is a process that is not in focus, and it's often characterized by a lot of labor-intensive work. There's a lot of people involved in the process. We see an unstructured approach to how to handle the numbers and the narratives. There's a lot of copy-pasting, as I mentioned earlier. There's no control over the narratives, who's writing what, where's the last version. There's no audit trail, neither on the data you present in the financial report, nor on the narratives. It's a process that's difficult to control because there's a lot of people who participate in the process. You might have region managers adding in, you might have personal assistants adding in, you might have a CEO who wants to come, or CFO come in with something to add in. There's a complexity in the landscape. You add data from different sources. Of course, the consolidation system is one of the primary sources for this, but you normally also have data floating in from other areas as well. We tend to see a lot of bottlenecks. There's typically a person or a system or some kind of minor database that controls the data, and it's difficult to have this to scale this way, because it's normally manually handled. We see that if you want to change something, let's see a data change, because you have a last minute change of data or either the number or narratives, it's difficult to change that throughout the system. We see that some of the additional information that's added into the management report, it's not stored in a specific system or database, meaning that it's only stored in the management report. Hence, it's difficult to find again, to find out what did I write the last time, etc. And you could say from a change perspective, it's more or less it's harder or more or less impossible to change it, either the data or the numbers in last minute. So there's definitely something we need to look at. So one of the things that we can do is to try to look at some of the areas that where we can, as group finance, can go in and help the business solve some of these issues. So we need to find a way how we can handle all these previous mentioned problems and consider a few more down the road. Because one of the things that we need to focus on is how do we get a structured process around this financial reporting piece, statutory report, etc., whatever kind of reporting that we want to do, where we combine the narratives and the numbers. We need to find a way how we structure all this combination of the narratives and numbers. It is definitely an important process in most companies. We see it on a monthly, on a quarterly, half-year, yearly basis that these reports are created. There's no structure around it. We need to find a way how can we easily update numbers, either financial, non-financial, in a structured way, the graphical interfaces in our reports, instead of copying and pasting data back and forth into different systems or Excel spreadsheets or whatever we want to do, how we control that process today. We also need to look a bit on how do we segregate some of the duties that we see in financial reporting when we create these statutory reports. Normally, we have a lot of people who contribute to the narratives, but we don't want them to change everything in the system. So how do we control that from a segregation of duty perspective? So that's also some of the issues that we need to focus on. And then, of course, we need to look at the process from a labor perspective, because right now it is quite labor intensive, and it's difficult to reconcile some of the data we have in that area as well. So one of the things that we can do is to look at it from a system and process perspective. So from a system perspective, going into that space, that will definitely give us a way to control the narratives, because adding a system around this process will give us a possibility to add an audit trail into this, both for the numbers and the narratives, so we can see who's changing what. We're able to create black lines going back in history to see the last version or later versions of that perspective. Adding systems also give us the possibility to remove some of the labor-intensive tasks that we see, and hence also the bottlenecks in that process. We're able to integrate it to other systems easily, and then upgrade it as well. We're able to introduce internal controls in a better manner than we've seen before. And as you mentioned, Anita, one of the side effects is also the XBRL tagging. It's easily added to the data when the report is created. So that's definitely some of the things that we get from the system perspective. From a process perspective, there's definitely also some benefits. One of the things that we see benefits you as clients is that the operational efficiency will definitely increase. We're able to reduce the handovers in the process, hence also reduce the process time. We're able to automate a lot of the things. So instead of having manual labor in doing specific tasks, we're now able to add that to the system, let the system take over. It gives us a process overview. So we're able to control, to see how far are we in this process, who's doing what at what time, have they actually performed the task that we've asked them to do. So we're able to control that process and then also have a better control over the last minute changes, because they're definitely there. From a data perspective, there's a lot more transparency in how we add the data into this financial report, the statutory reports, etc. Since we integrate the data in an automated way, it's easier for us to avoid the misstatements of the data. Hence also the integrity, the trust and the integrity of the data increase. So there's a lot of side effects down that road, and you can say simply just removing a lot of the errors from a data perspective is also a benefit. So how do we come around this? Well, from my perspective, there's two things I want to highlight that I think is important when we look at some of the ingredients that need to be in place. First of all, we need to have a solid foundation in place, and that's for me definitely a consolidation system. But when that's in place, I think the most important thing is that we need to acknowledge that there's not just one tool that can fit the entire process in the market today. We have investigated the market quite a lot, and from our perspective, there's simply not a tool that covers the entire process today. So we need to accept that and see the benefits of introducing another tool in that process. And that's where Workiva comes in play. So Anita, will you enlighten us a bit on how you can help us streamline this last mile reporting?
Yeah, absolutely, Lars. And first of all, I agree with everything you just said, and we kind of see it in a very similar way that you just described as well, in terms of how our customers, share their stories with us as well. But yeah, I see you've already gotten into the complexity piece. No, that's perfect. Yeah, just jump onto the next slide, thanks. So when we talk a lot with our customers, this is the reality that we see a lot of the time, and it's quite a complex world. So a lot of companies will have different recording systems, such as an Oracle or an SAP, and that's kind of sits as the almost the base behind or where all the information sits. But then there might be some different closing tools and consolidation tools. So when you start looking at the IT infrastructure, there might be, they might be using Workday from an HR perspective, they might be using Salesforce from a CRM perspective, but also there'll be a lot of unstructured data in the background as well, such flying through emails, through PDFs, and what we see is usually you would extract a piece of information which is real time at that specific moment, and it will start flowing around the organization. So it would go into team 1 for comments, you'll go into then team 5 for the fifth version of it, and by the time it comes to the reporting piece, what we see is 80% of the time our customers and prospects would debate what's the right information to actually use. Do they trust that information? And it leaves very little time for analysis, which is the most visible part in an organization. So similar to what you said, Lars, is that it's probably the highest visibility, but maybe the lowest kind of focus point at the moment. So when it comes to the reports that you share with your regulators or your board or even your auditors, it feels a bit rushed. It feels a bit last minute, and if there's any changes that need to happen in that last minute, it can cause a lot of stressful nights for a lot of different people. So if we go to the next slide, by the way, Lars, thank you.
Sure.
So with that complexity in mind, complexity brings risk as well. So if we look at some of the statistics here that have come from different studies, the status quo hides a big proportion of risk for a lot of organizations, which for the chief financial officers or the C-level is something that they would worry about as well. And if we look at some of these statistics, that 69% of organizations have actually made a significant decision based on inaccurate data. Now, this sometimes you get lucky and you can get away with it, but what happens when you don't? And especially if you are a public company, what will be the repercussions of that from reputational damage potentially as well? Then if we look at the CFO, they're very worried folks at the moment in terms of what would their exposure be, right, to error and related risks. So 75% of CFOs really are actually looking at this as we speak to make sure that that risk reduction does happen. And if we take it even a step further and we ask, like, are the current tools able to help you manage these risks? About 75% of the practitioners, so people who actually do this job, say they don't feel they have the right tools to be able to effectively manage that risk component as well. So here's where we come into play. And Lars, if I could ask maybe to go to the next slide. Thank you. So we kind of try and help streamline that process to a future state. So if we look at the right-hand corner, that's where, the left-hand corner, that's where all the systems exist. So that IT infrastructure is still there, still intact. All of these systems exist for a reason. And what we're not trying to do is we're not trying to replace the system, but what we're trying to do is take the information that sits in those systems through our tool to streamline in a very collaborative way to build that last mile piece that goes into the shareholder earnings, to the regulators and the auditors as well. So where Workiva kind of sits is in that middle bit. We have, Lars, you already mentioned that connectivity piece. So we connect at the source of the data. So what that means is we can connect to an SAP environment, we can connect to a Workday environment, whatever that environment is for a corporation where that information sits, to bring in those numbers and potentially narratives, build out narratives from there to use as a single version of truth. Which means that if a number changes in that system, it can be pushed, that change can be pushed into the platform and into those reports that it sits. So let's say a revenue number, which can exist, something between 200 to 500 times, from annual reports into investor relation reports, management reports, whatever that is. If that revenue number changes, you can, from a click of a button, change that destination into 200, 500 locations that have been linked into that piece of data to allow you to effectively manage that and streamline that any change that happens within an organization. We are a single platform. And what does that mean is that we bring everyone into one version of the truth. So any part of the organization could be working, it will always be working of the same version at any given time, which is the most updated version as well. Which means that now teams that potentially have worked in silos before, and departments that have worked in silos, can now collaborate at the same time in the same document at any given point. Of course, there's a governance structure behind it. So, Lars, something that you alluded to as well is you can't just have everyone doing everything. You can bring a governance structure into the platform and create, permissioning levels and roles based on responsibilities. But effectively, because everyone's working off the same document, it allows you to very efficiently, from a doc owner perspective, as an example, monitor and see how progression is being made. Because we are in the cloud as well, it creates a full audit trail, which means that any changes that are happening in the platform will automatically be logged at not just a narrative perspective, but even down to the cell level. So you can see if there are any number changes, what's changed, where has that source come from, which creates a great visibility for your auditors as well. And speaking of auditors, by the way, is because we are a solution-based kind of platform, it allows you to start collaborating with people that necessarily you would have to wait till the last minute, such as auditors. You can now actually invite them into your platform. They can review sections that have been completed, give their comments. So that allows you to now simultaneously start working with some other external parties, such as auditors or design agencies as well, to allow you to bring them into your reporting process from a very early stage. So in a way, that's kind of how we bring that collaboration piece within our platform. That's how we bring that consistency as well through connection into a single version of the truth. But it's also a continuous process because it allows you to work in real time with real data and allow you to actually focus more on the high end, strategy pieces of seeing, what's working, what isn't, than, maybe the more low value copy paste piece that probably no one really wants to be focusing on. So if we move to the next slide, Lars. Perfect, thank you. So it's basically, our platform allows you to focus on your work, right? Just to kind of reiterate, it is still your data, but now we're bringing it in a very unified manner. It sits in one place, we connect to it to the source, and it's always connected. So this is something that NTT Data, will be helping our customers as well, in terms of how do you create the best possible connections into your source systems and integrate in the most streamlined way. Because end of the day, if you start extracting pieces of information, then it is old information. So what we want to do is provide that real-time focus and allow you to really just focus on the work that you are tasked to do within your organization. So moving to the next slide, please, Lars. And how do we work in an ecosystem piece? So we as I mentioned, we work from the entire record to report piece. And this is a typical environment that we see a lot of larger enterprises, for example, experiencing. And this truly shows that complexity that we were talking about earlier. If you think that you start extracting all this information from all of these systems and trying to collate it at that last minute piece, it can be quite daunting and overwhelming, I can imagine. So what we want to do, that green line, is that we want to connect it, all of these sources at any given point, depending on how your organization, of course, works, to allow us to extract those integral pieces for the, let's call it the CFO office in this case, where the financial teams are tasked with that financial reporting preparation, to allow them to access the data in a very streamlined and governed way to help perform their reporting duties as well. And when I talk about platforms, Lars, if you could maybe go to the next slide, please. Thank you. We kind of, as I mentioned, I think at the beginning, we focus on sort of 4 key areas when it comes to our platform piece. The first of all is the financial reporting. This is kind of where we were born, and this is still probably one of the biggest use cases we do have, from annual and interim reporting to companies that are dual filers and have SEC reporting. But there are other elements that our customers use us as well. So one of the biggest pieces is ESG reporting. A lot of things happening in that environment, a lot of uncertainty, but the key here is to try and be agile as well. So ESG, now combining, your financial reports with your non-financials on one platform, using the same data sources, the same way of linking narrative and data as well, and numbers through both of those works, can really help companies save time in terms of trying to bring a different dimension into the financial reporting piece as well. Another key use case around regulatory reporting is, of course, global statutory reporting, something that we see a lot of it being very manual at the moment, with a lot of different entities sitting in different countries. Bringing it all together can sometimes be very time consuming. So a lot of our customers seeing a great benefit from a global stat perspective as well. And some of the other key use cases we have is management reporting, which I'm not going to dig into too much, because the other key area we see growing at the moment is that integrated risk. So combining your internal audits and your internal controls your internal controls would actually start feeding into your ESG controls as well, by the way. So now you can start seeing how this whole complexity kind of comes into one, molds into one. But yeah, you can kind of work through this whole wheel and help your organization, not just from your reporting purposes, which is maybe more of the left-hand piece, but also building your compliance piece around your integrated risk as well. And I do have to mention that we're very proud that actually Forrester a few months ago announced Workiva as a GRC leader in this space. So clearly our technology is really kind of resonating with our customers in a way of helping them manage their compliance piece as well when it comes to reporting. But Lars, that's kind of what I wanted to share a bit about, where Workiva is and how we approach this, helping streamline this process of last mile reporting. But how would you, get started if we were looking at potentially, playing around with ideas?
Well, good question, and thankfully I've created something for that. Well, the good thing is that since both we and Workiva is keen to get into this area, we actually create quite a good offer for you as we see it. Normally, because those of you who know me, I'm a nice guy. If you call me, I turn up and give you insights from my perspective in a 2-hour session. But we will like to expand this a bit more. We've made a great agreement with Workiva now, and since we want to get into the market, we and Workiva give you a joint offer where we will add some of our subject matter experts together with some of the subject matter experts from Workiva, and offer you a free of charge workshop where we will go in and have 2 sessions. One of them, the first one, will be a session where we go in and identify some of the current challenges you have in your processes. That means going through the process, the handover, the bottlenecks, the pitfalls, the complexity landscape that Anita showed us in the first slide. And then the second session, when we've looked at that, we will go in and identify how could you get a benefit from working with Workiva. What kind of processes, how can we streamline it? We will give you a demo. We will look at some of the other benefits that you can get from using Workiva, because as Anita showed you, there's more than just the last mile reporting. There's definitely also other areas where you can use the same tool. So there's a lot of other low-hanging fruits you can pick when you add the tool to your landscape. So take us up on that offer. Reach out to us before 1st of December, and then we'll be more than gladly to go give you a quite thorough brief walkthrough, both from a process and a system perspective, some of the benefits that you can gain from that one. So that concludes it from our side right now. It is possible for you to ask questions, and then we'll provide some answers for you if possible. I will stop sharing so I can see the Q&A session and see if there's any questions. Not that many. So, but nevertheless, hopefully you got some insights from our side. If there's not any questions, I would say that's it for today. Anita, thank you for participating. It was a pleasure to listen to some of the insights from you and Workiva on your perspective on last mile reporting. I look forward to our continuous cooperation in Nordics. And to the audience, thank you for participating and listening to the webinar. Please reach out to me or Anita if you want to have some more insights in how Workiva and NTT Data can help you going forward down this road. Enjoy the rest of the day. Keep an eye open for further webinars on our NTT Data channel. So
thank you for having me, Lars.
Yeah. You're welcome. So that concludes today's session. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, everyone.